As a very small, minuscule, cretinous child, I'd always wanted to be a YouTuber. I'd sit around doing piss all for months on end, watching channels like Venturian Tale and Zerain Gaming, creating Roblox videos with my grubby little what's-it fingers. I was perfectly content with this innocent little life I was living, until one day, the bro army attacked. PewDiePie was now the biggest channel on YouTube, public menace #1. My friends at school told me about this guy. Yeah, he buys his subscribers, he supports. And I was like, oh my god. The year is now 2013 and gaming content is dominating the platform harder than I dominate your mum. You basically couldn't go anywhere without these funny YouTube men playing the latest video games. But the unique thing about this year, aside from me finally actually making a YouTube channel, is that it introduced me to the world of horror games. Amnesia, Slenderman, SCP Containment Breach, but most importantly, RPG horror. A year later, on May the 24th, 2014, Felix uploaded the first video on his Let's Play of Corpse Party. I don't know why I took an interest in this game. Anime wasn't and still kind of isn't my thing. Maybe it was the colossal boobies in the thumbnail though. However, I was shocked. I couldn't really comprehend how a game so charming and innocent in its visuals could captivate me and terrify me as much as Corpse Party did. The characters, the dialogue, the music, all of it was great and bloody terrifying. It opened my eyes to a totally new genre of game I'd never seen before, and it's led me to finding other amazing similar games. In this video, I want to go through the Corpse Party series, as well as some other RPG horror games, and explain to you what makes them so brilliant. But before I go into that, here's a history lesson. Whoa. Let me take you to the 80s, a time of global famine. In 1982, a series of Japan-exclusive personal computers created by the Japanese company NEC hit the market, and they were right. You could do like work and stuff on it, I suppose. But why work when you can play video games? And porn. But don't tell anyone I said. That's right, this was a gaming PC at its bloody finest. And throughout the 90s, it garnered a massive video game library. Everything from simulation games to horror games to visual novels and dating sims. Wow, we really haven't changed the gaming market at all, have we? Even Police Noughts was on this thing by the gracious Hideo Kojima himself, creator of QWOP. But something neat about the PC-98 was its colossal library of indie games, and there were a lot of them. And I think a big contributor to this was the creation of RPG Maker. What a beautiful environment I find myself in. I am Grandad Smeg. I bestow against you a funny quest. Will you accept? Declined! On December 17th, 1992, Japanese company ASCII created a game development toolkit for the PC-98 that allowed users, as long as they were in Japan, to create their own JRPGs. Due to its simplicity, it could be used to make small little games in one's own spare time, but at the hands of a versatile creator, it could be used for massive and truly unique projects. Or, you know, you can make a really bloated 20-hour JRPG about Ninja Fortnite Man like everyone else bloody does. I mean, I'm right, JRPGs don't have a good reputation in the West, because in my opinion, they're just kind of really boring. Which is quite a shame, because there's quite a lot of good games inspired by the genre that are genuinely really cool. The mere fact RPG Maker is accessible to basically everyone has given it a bad reputation, in the fact that all games basically feel and play the exact same, with no variation at all. But what if someone was to subvert this? Horror games have been around for a long time, even longer than your mum. There was a point where the pinnacle of video game terror was, I don't know, Fucking Space Invaders. It's like when that train movie came out in the 1890s and everyone thought they were gonna get run over and die. This right here is as real and as scary as video games are ever going to get.
Alright, there are boxes, so I'm gonna get chased, aren't I?
As technology got better, video game developers found new ways to scare its audience through the use of psychological horror like Silent Hills, survival horror like Resident Evil, or jump scare horror like Five Nights at Wallace. Of course, such an influential medium has found its way into the indie scene, with some of the biggest and well-known horror games originating from very small development teams. But game development is hard, and for the everyday person wanting to make their mark on the gaming world, learning how to make video games is very hard, not only requiring a large amount of knowledge, not just from a coding perspective, but on art, visuals, game design, sound design. It can be momentously difficult for anyone wanting to create their dream game, which is where RPG Maker comes in. RPG Maker has an extremely low learning curve. It comes with its own tile sheet and music. It can be hugely customizable, at least within the confines of an RPG, and it's hugely accessible. The program's tagline is literally simple enough for a child, powerful enough for a developer. But obviously this comes with its limitations. Firstly, it's a program for making, well, RPGs.
How are you gonna make a scary game on a thing that looks like this?
Well, horror games, specifically in Japan, tend to prey on you psychologically, luring you in with a sense of comfort, and then destroying you mentally and physically. That's the magic of RPG horror. You could be walking down a hallway, talking to your best mate about buttering your arsehole, and then in a split second, you've killed her and eaten her. In the 90s, ASCII hosted a bunch of monthly magazines titled Login Softcom to promote RPG Maker, where amateur developers could reach out and submit their own creations for others to see. On April the 22nd, 1996, indie developer Makoto Kedouin and his friend from college, Mel Hamamoto, submitted their creation under the company name Kinixoft. The game was titled Corpse Party. The game was pretty cool, even winning second place in the Epic Gaming Award. Corpse Party was unique in the fact it stripped back a lot of the RPG type features in place of a more adventure game style format. No more quests or random encounters. These are our protagonists.
Satoshi, the main character of the group. He's strong-willed and kind of a pussy. Also, all the girls fancy him. Yoshiki, the school delinquent. He's kind of a misunderstood dickhead. He has a deep crush on Ayumi, the class rep. She likes exchanging horror stories and is really annoying, a trait passed down through the other games. She has a crush on Satoshi and is a massive fuck. And finally, Naomi, she's a tomboy and also has a crush on Satoshi, creating an epic love isosceles triangle.
They held a funeral and cremated her. Basically, everyone considered this a stupid story and resumed cleaning up the classroom. Like, come on Ayumi, we've all played Five Nights at Freddy's, your half-assed story doesn't scare me. Everything's going as to plan when, all of a sudden,
a knock at the door. Everyone else at the school's already left, even the teachers, so whoever could be behind that door was absolutely beyond them. Yoshiki prompts Satoshi to go over and investigate, and much to his dismay, Satoshi walks over to the door. Whatever was behind that door was truly the most terrifying thing to ever grace the human world.
Bruh.
Yuka is Satoshi's brother and she's really annoying. Surprise, surprise, it wasn't a freaky ghoul. It was just Satoshi's sister, Yuka, who came in because she had noticed Satoshi forgot his umbrella and she didn't want him to walk home in the rain. Ah, how adorable. Maybe she won't be killed. Anyhow, the group decide it's time to pop off and go back home when, all of a sudden, a bright light pierces the hallway, the room starts shaking violently. Everyone tries to gather their bearings, but it's futile as all of a sudden their vision plunges into darkness. Satoshi snaps out of his unconsciousness. Instead of the sleek, modern classroom he had grown accustomed to, everything was now made out of wood, rotting and eroding, with cracks and dark pits littering the surface of the floor. Luckily, he manages to find Naomi, who was similarly unconscious, as well as his sister Yuka, who's crying like a little cretin. Yoshiki and Ayumi also barge into the classroom, bringing the gang officially back together. Wherever they were, this school wasn't their own. The group notices a slip of paper on the side of the room, in which Satoshi instructs his little sister to read it. It's a newspaper slip, dated September the 24th, 1926. The group quickly realised the direness of the situation they're in. Wherever the hell they were stuck, with no way of escaping. Yoshiki devises a plan to split up and cover different parts of the school to find a potential exit, where Satoshi would split off and head south with Naomi and his sister, whilst Yoshiki and Ayumi would head north. Of course, everyone knows splitting up is the worst thing to do, but it's the 90s, so they didn't really have critical thinking back then. The group parts ways, and Corpse Party is about to begin. The game focuses on the two central parties, with each group solving different puzzles, encountering different types of threats, and uncovering their own parts to the underlying backstory of the school. You can switch to the other group at any time by touching these pentagrams scattered throughout the game. Now, I should mention, the gameplay I'm showing you right now isn't the original Corpse Party. It's actually a fan-made remake called Corpse Party Rebuilt that is very faithful to the classic, apart from the lack of Simpson graphics. Also, I'll get it out the way now, the music in this game bloody kicks ass. All the songs are really techno-y and not scary by any means, but I feel like if it wasn't there it would lose its charm. Anyhow, Satoshi, Naomi and Yuka all walk into a classroom and find a dead corpse that begins speaking to them. The voice is a spirit who has been trapped in the walls of the school for years and tells our protagonists that they're no longer on Earth. They're now in a world culminated by the residual thoughts of vengeful spirits, and they will never ever be able to escape. That's nice! I wonder what the others are getting up to. They walked into a trap and are now trapped in... This is where the gameplay really starts to formulate. For example, you'd now take control of Satoshi's group, find a lever somewhere within the school, and then Yoshiki and Ayumi would be free. This entire event can actually be avoided. There is literally a note on the ground saying Don't go in there, please. But it's totally up to the player's intuition on whether they want to go forward or not. This small little piece of character interaction in which we learn quite a lot about these two characters' personalities could be entirely missed if you want to, which I think is kind of neat. These don't happen much within the game, but it adds some degree of replayability and some good depth into our characters. After escaping, Yoshiki and Ayumi see the ghost of a girl in a red dress. who enters the science room. Following her to investigate, the duo realizes that the anatomical model at the corner of the room is alive. Oh no. Now, in the ideal situation, you can outsmart the crappy RPG Maker AI and leave, but it is entirely possible for you to be caught. In that scenario, you're given a choice. As Yoshiki, save Ayumi by sacrificing yourself or leave her to die. Corpse Party is permadeath, and if one of the members of your party are killed, they don't come back.
A similar situation coincides with Satoshi's group. Yuka comes up to you and moans about needing a colossal waterfall piss. You're near a toilet, so you agree. The choice arises. Do you accompany your sister's piss, or make stinky Naomi do it instead? Ugh. Well, in the canonical series of events, you agree to go inside with Yuka. Yuka, are you done yet? Huh? Yuka, hello? Are you in there? Yuka, come on, please.
Jeez, you perv.
Bro, if you were there, you could have literally just said something to me. Why you gotta be cringe?
Unbelievable, man. This is why Mum doesn't love you.
The entire bathroom stall in which Yuka resides in starts to gush with blood. Yuka starts to drown. Satoshi amidst the panic also hears a scream outside. It's Naomi. Here's the predicament. Try and save your sister who's literally drowning in blood, or go and investigate Naomi. Yeah, well, obviously I have my priorities straight and go to save the person literally drowning in front of me. The girl in the red dress from earlier hovers over you.
No matter how you try and save her, the door only opens for me!
The stall is now completely overflown with clotted blood. The ghost suggests an ultimatum. Would you give up your life to save your sister? Yeah. And like a really cool dude, Satoshi jumps up and pulls Yuka out of the stall like a cool dude. But what happened to Naomi? Yeah, she's fine. If you die here, the pain of your death will continue for eternity. No matter how it hurts, no matter how you bear it, no matter how much you cry out, there is no escape from that pain. You cannot truly die down here. In this horrid darkness, I regret even being born. It was this excerpt that shook me to the core when I first played Corpse Party years ago. It's not really elaborated on in this game per se, minus this one note, but the mere concept of being alone, brutally killed and then having to bear with that pain for eternity was a really scary idea to young me. Anyhow, across from the broken hallway, all our characters manage to meet up with each other. They commune about their experiences and their progress on escaping. Satoshi even throws across some holy shoes he found earlier that can protect you from the green slime. Once again, the group parts ways. Yoshiki and Ayumi decide to go to the class that mirrors their own in the real world, and all of a sudden, they're once again engulfed by a white light. They've seemingly been transported back to their own school, in the real world, when all of a sudden the floor is ripped apart and out hovers once again the girl in the red dress. But this time, she isn't hostile whatsoever. She begins telling the duo about the life before her death. She was a solitary child, didn't have many friends. One day, whilst everyone was off, leaving with their friends to go home, she sat back in the classroom, listening to the rain and watching as everyone parted ways. In walked in a teacher, at first seeming quite kind, worried about the girl's lonely nature, and with the blink of an eye, his pure, deep-rooted evil motivations were revealed as he tried to lock the girl in an embrace. This was a horrid, shocking revelation. The girl tried pushing him away, threatening to tell the police, but it didn't work. Until, if you come anywhere near me, I'll jump
The teacher was taken aback. He tried to grab her from the ledge, but it was too late. The girl had fallen. In a fit of panic, the teacher immediately went downstairs to hide the body when he bumped into the principal. He didn't even try and save face. He was so overwhelmed with the shock he confessed to absolutely everything he did. But the principal, instead of intervening or calling the police, helped him hide the body. Scared of the loss of reputation the school would get if any of this was found out, she was dumped under the floorboards of the school and eventually forgotten to time. She tells you that she was the one who sent you to the evil realm of the school. After death, her spirit split into two sides, one timid and kind like her former self, but the other filled with rage and resentment for all human life, regardless if they had anything to do with her death or not. It's that side of the spirit that takes random people unrelated to her demise and traps them in the school for eternity to die alone. This evil self, however, had apparently gotten weaker, weak enough in fact for the good spirit to bring Ayumi and Yoshiki home. This, however, can't be done for Satoshi, Yuka and Naomi. However, there is one way to get the others back. You have to go back to the school and dig up my corpse. Yeah, I suppose we could do that. So the duo go back to the school with the intention of kicking the arse of the red spirit, kicking the arse of the school, kicking Yuka's ass, and to get back home. Talk to the others, watch the head teacher's spirit get tortured for eternity. Satoshi plays Megalovania on the piano. The game, in my opinion, really kicks off at this point. Before, everything was dreary and awful and you wanted to die, but now there's a good source of hope, and you can especially see that in our main characters. Ayumi and Yoshiki solve a couple of puzzles, find an incinerator, gets in the incinerator, and it leads to the school basement where bloody finally everyone meets up to escape this godforsaken school. The gang, finally reunited, steps into the grounds in which the corpse of the girl was buried with the intention of finally putting her spirit to rest. But the evil version doesn't want to go and becomes enraged. But luckily, using the power of friendship, the group battles the spirit in the only RPG battle in the game. Of course, you as the player wins. Everyone gets the hell out of there before the school explodes. You return home. Satoshi and Naomi share a cute little moment. Satoshi, do you see me as a woman?
No!
And well, that's Corpse Party. Overall, it's a very fun little product of its time. Obviously it's quite dialogue heavy, graphically it's quite bland, and obviously there are some very harsh limitations in terms of gameplay, especially when it comes to a game made in an engine for JRPGs. But aside from that, with the sick music, the impeccable writing and the game's overall charm, Corpse Party is brilliant and very well worth your time, but that's not all. I said earlier, Corpse Party includes permadeath, and whoever dies stays dead. Corpse Party has 7 different endings, each with their own rank symbolising the severity of said ending. There are a whole bunch of other interesting scenarios that can happen if certain people perish within the school, so I highly recommend you to go and find them for yourself. Corpse Party was very well received, but despite this, Kedwin and Koenigsoft largely went into silence after the game's release. There were some attempts at a sequel. The next game in the series was going to be called Corpse Party 2, Satsuki's Heart, and was meant to focus more on an older Yuka and her best friend Satsuki. The game was never released, likely due to the fact the original version of RPG Maker was becoming outdated. Because of the lack of games, however, many developers decided to put their own spin on the Corpse Party formula by releasing their own fan games, one of which, Corpse Party 0, was so well liked by Kedwin that he referenced the 2 central characters in his future games. But aside from that, I suppose that's really the end of Corpse Party's legacy. Or is it?
In the wake of Corpse Party, the late 2000s saw a massive spike in Japanese indie horror, many games of which ended up becoming cult classics years down the line when shown to a Western audience. Misao, a free horror game released in 2011 and remastered for Steam a couple of years later, obviously takes a bit of inspiration from Corpse Party. Well, I say a bit of inspiration. The setting revolves around a class of nutty teenagers who are banished to an alternate version of their school that is populated by a vengeful spirit who is killed by a grubby teacher nonce. Now you may be wondering why I'm focusing on this masterpiece first rather than some other RPG classics. Well, the reason I'm talking about Misao is not only because of the direct correlation to Corpse Party, but also because Misao is so goddamn funny. Misao is a very charming and fun little game, but unlike Corpse Party, writing isn't really its forte. Characters are exaggerated to the point of hilarity, and your protagonist is borderline mad. There's a sequence where one of your mates from school, Yoshino, who is eventually revealed to be a horrible, horrible person, is strapped to an operating table. The person who put her there will return any second now, so instead of helping her out, you ditch her and hide inside this fat man's corpse. Yoshino is then gutted alive, and when you come out from hiding, the first thing you say is, "Whoops. Totally forgot about Yoshino." Think that's bad? A good 5 seconds ago you were lecturing this character on how to not be a dickhead. Hey man, come on bro. Please stop bullying people, man. If you promise not to bully weak people anymore, then I'll be willing to help you. Also, since unlike Corpse Party you're not playing as a variety of different characters, you don't really get to relate to your protagonist's experiences that much because she, well, isn't emotionally affected by anything or anyone. All your friends who you're dragged down with, the moment you meet up with them at the school, they just spontaneously die in an encounter. There's not really any character development. This girl right here is supposedly your best friend, and the moment you see her dead, your character's just like, alright then. Another brilliant thing about this game is the deaths. In Corpse Party you had like one opportunity to be killed per party, and it didn't even halt the gameplay. In Misao, you inspect an object and then it goes, ooh, this is the spooky shelf, and then you're dead. This is my favourite one. You go to a phone and then it rings, and then the ringing startles you, so you fall over and die. Right, to summarise Misao up, I feel like it's a bit like Marmite. You either love it or you pretend to hate it. And despite its flaws, it's the funny moments that ultimately make it a really entertaining game. And jokes aside, I feel like the twist in this game is way more traumatic and sad than Corpse Party's was. Luckily, the developer of Misao buckled up, took all this criticism, and a year later, on the 10th of December, created a game called Mad Father. Now, in my opinion, Mad Father is the complete opposite to Misao. The story is way more original and arguably leagues better than the former game. Graphically, it looks well nicer and creepier, and your character Aya actually reacts to the scenarios happening around her, rather than having a vacant smile. You play as a girl named Aya Drevis, and you live in Luigi's mansion with your dad and his stinky assistant. However, things are not all as it seems, because as it turns out, your father is, well, mad, and has devoted his life to kidnapping and experimenting on people in the mansion basement. On one cold, rainy night on the anniversary of your mother's death, you awake to find out your father's test subjects have escaped. It's your job to save your dad and uncover the deadly mystery behind the mansion and his work. The story is really brilliant and actually has many links to Misao as well if you look deep enough. It's also way more subtle and allows for the player to discover at their own pace rather than the story being flat out told to you like Misao. Mad Father also has different branching endings depending on your choices, which I won't spoil so you can experience the game for yourself. Overall, the game's pretty sick. It does contain some of the crappy elements from Misao, like the uncontrollable deaths, but I'd like to think they're not as bad. Mad Father has also had a total remaster that you can buy on Steam and the Nintendo Switch, as well as the original free version, so you have no excuse not to buy it. Also, there's literally a bald man in this game. How can you not resist?
Come on! Come on, buy it, please! Come on!
Now, on the subject of unavoidable deaths. Whoa, it's the witch's house, baby! Holy crap, man, this is a good game. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and say it. When a lot of people bring up the term RPG horror, the witch's house is usually what comes to mind. And with good reason, because it's a very, very good game. You wake up in a forest. No dialogue, no music, just silence. You walk back to see if there's any exit, only to find the way out has been blocked by thick roses. So you go back the other direction, and that's when you see it. The cat! He's the best character in the game because he talks, he saves your game, and he's pretty cool. He's a pretty cool dude. The black cat is the only abundant source of solace you'll have in this dark and foreboding adventure. And you'll need it, because in the witch's house, everything is out to kill you. And this is made fundamentally clear as soon as you step inside the witch's house. In the witch's house, everyone and everything wants you dead. Even this really wholesome, funny-looking bear will absolutely destroy you if you let your guard down. It's just fun to see how many times your protagonist can get brutally murdered. Overall, the witch's house is an absolute classic, and if you want to be really cool like me, you should play it.
Also, the ending is very, very good.
Now, to those unfortunate enough to still be watching this video, I know precisely what you must be thinking right now.
Man, I'm such a bloody pristine gentleman, but my video games do not have enough, how do you commoners say it, that's right, froth. Why can't I play a jolly good game with, a funny blue man in it, yes? That'd be rather good.
Well, funny British man, do I happen to have a video game for you? Oni is a funny little game released in 2007. Now, upon first inspection, you may think this looks a little bit shite. But no, you're wrong. This is actually the scariest game to come out since Dr. Dolittle on the PS2. You play as Hiroshi, a stupid idiot nerd who decides to explore a secluded and supposedly abandoned mansion with your mates, after hearing some spooky stories surrounding it. Of course though, you're an incredibly rational and judicious individual and think this is all bollocks. Because of course, it is scientifically proven that monsters do not exist. Upon entering the house, one of your friends, Takeshi, turns to you and is immediately shook to his core, wanting to leave even though they've been inside the mansion for a mere 5 seconds.
I name myself Elbow 69. Elbow 69.
Takaro, the hard man of the group, calls him out for being an utter pussy. That's when a smash is heard in a room east from the entrance. Everyone is too afraid to check out what made the noise, and since you're adamant monsters are scientifically impossible, you head out to check what it was. It was only a plate that had fallen on the ground. When you walk back to the main hallway, you find out all your friends have now disappeared. After exploring for a bit, you walk into one of the upstairs bedrooms and find Takeshi hiding inside a wardrobe, absolutely shook, speechless. Within the same room, you manage to find a key leading to the mansion's library. You walk into the library when, all of a sudden, ah! Blue man! Ah!
Here we go, it's the funny man.
I'm not meant to be scared.
This is the Oni. The name roughly translated from Japanese means blue ogre, which is a stupid name because it's obviously purple. This is the main antagonist of the game, and at random points it will pop out and pursue you. So aside from focusing on all the puzzles, you'll always have to be on guard for this purple prick, otherwise you're dead. Speaking of puzzles, dumb idiot! The piano puzzle is
funny. What is it with pianos in RPG Maker horror anyway? There's been a piano sequence in every single RPG Maker game I've previously noted, either as a puzzle sequence, a death trap, or both. Wait a second.
Hey, Satoshi, would you like to come over and listen to me play the piano?
It's all connected. The mere fact you have to always be on guard for this terrifying creature added a great layer of horror to Aooni. With the other aforementioned games, you always had the scary atmosphere, the music, the writing to immerse you in the psychological horror, but this has been severely stripped back in Aooni, but not to a bad degree. I said previously that the magic of RPG horror is its minimalism. The Oni is so grotesque and alien compared to the bleak and mundane environment of the mansion. It makes his encounters way more terrifying when he pops up, because look at him! What is this? For the most part, the backstory of the mansion is never elaborated on or explained. We have absolutely no clue who or what this thing is, other than the fact it vores your friends, then he poos them out into different versions of himself, and shares the house with these buffoons. And you know what? That's okay. It adds a sense of mystery to the story, and let's be honest, I'm not sure you could write a serious backstory to something with this face anyway. Despite the game seeming a little bit niche, Aooni was actually a massive success in the West and Japan, and as a bunch of expanded media, it's been adapted into an anime. Wow. This looks really good. The game has 2 other sequels, even a manga, so you can experience the purple twat as intended, in grayscale. Not to mention, the movies. Wow. This looks really good. Anyway, Aooni is free, so play it, or I will put you in the fridge. And take it from me, you don't want to go in the fridge. Well, I suppose that's my take on some of the more well-known RPG horror game. You may have noticed I've neglected brilliant games such as Ebe and Yume Nikki, but I won't cover these here. They're all great, but the reason I didn't talk about them is because I never played them, and I didn't know about them when I was younger, so I assumed I wouldn't be able to give them enough justice with my commentary. Although, there have been some very good videos on the subject that you should watch. All of these games bring something brilliant to the table, and you should definitely check them out. However, it really makes you wonder, if Corpse Party never existed, what would the outcome of these games have been? Misao takes a large quantity of inspiration from Corpse Party, and if Misao was never made, then I suppose Mad Father wouldn't have been created either. And the hundreds of fan content and inspiration that thrived because of Mad Father would never have really existed. Even other stuff from various indie developers have taken inspiration and concepts from Corpse Party for their own games. Not to say Aooni and the Witch's House wouldn't exist without Corpse Party, but it certainly impacted the horror genre. And hey, if it wasn't for the NES game Sweet Home, which Corpse Party and bloody Resident Evil were based on, then the entire landscape of survival horror would look entirely different. After the release of the original Corpse Party on the PC-98, the members of Kenixsoft split off and made a new company by the name of Team Gris Gris. Here they would begin working on a totally new reimagining of Corpse Party, with all new characters, art and plot. It was called Corpse Party New Chapter, and the different chapters of the game are released consecutively for mobile during 2006 to 2007. But forget everything I just said, because this was eventually discontinued, fleshed out a bit more, and ported to the PC in 2008 with a slight graphical overhaul and finished ending. Now, this has been ported to Steam and is the most easily accessible of the remakes, but I wouldn't recommend you playing this specific version. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is because this form of Corpse Party is like 9 different bloody versions, all of which keep the same stuff but include additional content like extended endings and chapters. For the sake of the video, I'll mainly be focusing on the PSP port, Corpse Party Bloodcovered Repeated Fear, bloody hell, which is a colossal improvement over the PC edition, with remastered graphics, voice acting, music and art. Look at my man Satoshi here. His back muscles have been converted into crayons. Now look at the same footage with RTX on. Boom. Now he has a spine. All these changes definitely make up for a better Player experience. Sorry, I'm eating craves. All these changes definitely make up for the better player experience. So if you want to play Corpse Party in the intended way, legally get the game like an upstanding British citizen would. The game starts out with some familiarity. Once again, everyone's huddled around a little candle whilst Ayumi shares her creepypasta to the class. Years and years ago, back when their school was named Heavenly Host, a teacher tripped down the stairs and smashed their skull in. The principal, being so distraught over this, went to the top floor of the building and killed himself. According to the story, the woman who fell down the stairs still has no idea she's dead, and on rainy evenings like this, some claim she roams these darkened hallways, still believing them to be her own. Ooh. All of a sudden, there's a conveniently timed blackout, and the entire classroom is plunged into darkness. Everyone is panicking and pooing themselves. And to make matters worse, the sound of muffled footsteps can be heard outside the classroom, coming closer and closer. But it's fine, it's just the teacher coming to check on how everyone is.
I love it when my scares are so thoroughly effective.
It's simply delicious. It's not only the teacher who decided to make a surprise visit though, as Satoshi's stupid sister Yuka pops in to give him an umbrella. I'm sorry, but I detest this woman. Now, I'm sure you're already drawing parallels to the classic 98 version. For the most part, they're pretty similar, but now we've got an expanded roster of characters who weren't there before, and even the main cast are completely different personality-wise. Obviously, in a JRPG-inspired game, dialogue has to be one of the primary focuses, because gameplay can be a bit lackluster. And I'm happy to say this is probably one of the best RPG horror games in that regard. Most, if not all, characters are pretty memorable here. There's also voice acting, which is pretty great, but everyone speaks Japanese, and if you can't tell by my incredibly white voice, that isn't a language I understand. Well, it's time to fucking bloody introduce all the characters again. Right, so Satoshi is somewhat considered the main character of the game. He's your typical kind-hearted anime protagonist, and is a giant mega pussy when it comes to most situations. Basically, every single female character in these games has a gigantic mega crush for him. Yes, that includes the teacher. Yes, that includes his sister. Naomi is a mega tomboy and has comically large boobies, something which the game will not fail to tell you at any point. She has a massive crush on Satoshi, and the way she conveys this is by mentally and emotionally torturing him, as all girls do to the ones they love. She has a very good relationship with Seiko, and Seiko... Oh man. Seiko is a horny, sex-induced loony woman. We've also got Yoshiki, who's still the best character in the game. As a person, I find him quite relatable, because he is really cool and epic and strong, and really cool like me, but will still never find love. Yoshiki was going down into a path of delinquency until Ayumi told him to buckle up and stop being an asshole, and he's loved her ever since. Which is really funny because Ayumi hates him and would rather get a slice of Satoshi instead, because as established, every single woman loves this man. Ayumi finds comfort in telling spooky stories, but she only really does this to hide her deep insecurities. Yuka, also known as Piss Woman, is the younger sister of Satoshi. She's 14 years old, but acts way younger because she thinks it will get her extra gaming points. That leads us to the last couple of characters. Woman, paedophile, and wall. Now, the reason all these lovely fellows are staying behind at school is because earlier on in the afternoon, Kisaragi Academy was celebrating their annual cultural festival, and these were the students who volunteered to stay behind and clean up. But this was more of a way to spend extra time with Mayu, who will be moving schools the next day. Mayu is pretty distraught about leaving all her friends behind. So, to cheer her up, Ayumi suggests doing a charm she found on the internet.
Apparently, if done correctly, everyone who performed the charm will remain the greatest of friends, no matter how far away they are. What a lovely gesture, because as we know, charms found on the internet can never go wrong. To perform the charm, about 2 to 10 participants and a little paper cutout of a man is needed. You huddle around in a circle, all grasping a limb from the paper doll. For every person partaking in the charm, the phrase "Sachiko, we beg of you" must be shouted. Failure to do so and I suppose you just won't be friends forever. After that, you all pull really hard, and then you tear the poor bloke limb from limb. Bloody hell, poor man.
ナオミ、ライバル出現だね。何言ってるのかな。
Everyone gets in a small little circle, shouts the magic words, and tears the paper doll in half. Now, all they gotta do is keep the paper scrap and they'll be friends forever. All the girls are quite happy with the outcome of the charm, but the lads aren't so convinced. And I see what they mean. If some occult weirdo coerced me into doing a charm that supposedly made us friends forever, and it included tearing apart a little paper man in half, whilst also simultaneously chanting some daft bollocks, I'd probably give them the backhand. Anyway, Miss Yu has basically had enough of these arseholes literally bunking home time, so she suggests everyone to pack up their stuff and go home. Everyone hugs each other goodbye and is about to leave when, all of a sudden... A huge crack amasses in the middle of the classroom and everyone falls into the depths below to their death. Naomi wakes up in the desolate classroom, the environment completely different to the previous room she was once in. She was now standing in a class that looked like it had aged back 60 years. As she walks up to investigate where she is, she finds Seiko lying down on the floor unconscious. As you control Naomi out of the class, you find a newspaper discussing various disappearances and abductions from the local area. But some of the important details have been scrubbed from the paper, making everything seem quite ambiguous. You trail round to Seiko, who is thankfully still alive. The two try to scramble the windows open, it's left futile as they're completely barred shut. That's when Seiko notices a print on the south side of the class. A letter directed to the students of Heavenly Host Elementary School, the same school mentioned in Ayumi's ghost story. Oh no, who could have seen this coming? The sudden realisation that they've been transported into some random fuck-off school from a horror story sends Seiko into an immediate panic, but Naomi, similarly terrified, puts on her most inspirational tone. Seiko, shut up you wench. We're going to get out this classroom, have sex with Satoshi, and escape together. So come on, let's go. We're finally delving into the world of Corpse Party Bloodcovered. Jesus Christ, it only took 47 minutes. Bloodcovered focuses on a lot of character interaction and building upon the atmosphere of the school. With other games mentioned, the environment was usually just there as a prop for your spooky adventure. The location didn't really matter because it focused more on the mystery and story of the game. This is good and everything, but walking down a hallway in an RPG game doesn't have the same gravitas as walking down a hallway in bloody Outlast. It's like how a good book can make you picture every nook and cranny of a location without you being in it. It's kind of hard to lose yourself within a horror game like these if they don't nail the atmosphere correctly. And I'm happy to say Corpse Party tries its best to really immerse you in its surroundings, whether that be through the sound design, like hearing Ayumi whisper sacred thoughts into your earhole, or the sound of flesh being ripped from someone's body. I downloaded a catalogue of these sound effects for use in this video, and I get horrible anxiety whenever I accidentally hear these stupid fly sounds. There's also the dialogue. Every dead body has a unique, gruesome written description of how they've been killed. Scattered around the school are different memoirs that give you insight into the tribulations of other survivors and what they've had to face, all of which include some messed up awful story and activate special events upon finding them all. Man, even analysing random ass objects will give you a 10-paragraph essay. Oh look, a bucket. There's a yellow fluid congealing inside the rusted bucket. piss. Seriously, this game nails the spooky school atmosphere perfectly. I do see how Bloodcovered may not be for everyone though. Corpse Party can have its quirky moments, but there are some parts in the game that are really borderline edgy for the sake of edgy. That, and there's a lot of fan service, and certain scenes can just be kind of uncomfortable to endure if you're used to the cheesiness factor of games like Aoni. But yet again, if the idea of a bunch of teenagers being mass murdered is an issue for you, you wouldn't really be this far into this awful video. Anyhow, back to the game. Naomi and Seiko find a loose board and use it to cross over a gap in the hallway to access the other side of the school. We learn that Seiko has 3 younger siblings at home and that her mother disappeared when she was a child, meaning she's had a pretty maternal role in the family and is worried about how her brothers are doing. Naomi comforts her and tells her to keep being strong, and the two make their way up to the west hall of the school. What the fuck? Ah! A ghoul! Nah, just kidding guys, it's not a ghoul. It's actually just a friendly spirit who kicked the bucket ages ago and is now here to give the exposition to the player. The spirit tells Naomi and Seiko he was also dragged here against his will, and that no matter how hard they try, there is absolutely no way to escape. He also tells the group that their friends must have been dragged down here too, but meeting up with them will be futile. You see, the school acts as a cursed multi-dimensional nexus that hosts multiple planes of existence all toppled up on each other thanks to the unending anger of powerful vengeful spirits, meaning 2 people could be standing in the precise same location, but due to it being some sort of alternate realm, they won't actually be able to meet up or communicate with each other, rather than through some subtle means. It's all timey-wimey Doctor Who shit, I don't know, but the basis is, these guys are here, the others are here, but not there. Anyway, the crux is, be happy that you're stuck with one of your mates because there's a 100% chance you're going to perish and die.
脱出方法を見つけ出すんだ。私たちのようにならないでくれ。
A ghoul! There's no easy way out for us. Like it or not, we're stuck here. Jesus Christ, at least have some motivation, you downer. At least Seiko still has the fighting spirit. Anyway, here's a ghost that says if you die in the school, you feel the pain you felt moments before death for eternity with no chance of damnation or freedom from said pain. See, I don't know who this dead fool is, but he isn't particularly helping the situation. Luckily, the dead person dropped a key, so at least he had some worth in his eternal suffering. Anyway, you return back to the classroom where the 2 spirits were, and you find some drawings that weren't there before, depicting a figure pursuing 4 smaller guys whilst brandishing a pair of scissors. There's also a note on the wall saying, "Attention Heavenly Host students, I'm going to kill you." Obviously nothing of concern here, so the girls leave. Also, upon reading this script over again, I realised I keep swapping between the first person and third person in regards to the main characters. This is a very annoying thing to do in a long video. What am I going to do about it now I've realised? Nothing. The girls find a wall entirely caked with blood and guts, almost like someone from the other end of the hall was thrown at superhuman speed and turned into mush on impact. Damn,
What an acute observation, Seiko. Care to share more with the class?
Not being able to stand the sight or the smell of the fresh burger on the wall, Naomi and Seiko leave, solves a quick puzzle in room 5A, finds the key to the school infirmary, this will be useful later. Then they place down another loose board and use it to cross a pit into the east hall of the main building, where they find the girls' toilets. Wow, I've always wanted to know what the girls' toilets looks like. It looks shit. Finally, relinquishing my occupation of the stinky woman poo-poo location, I left. But this victory wouldn't be savoured for long.
Hey, Naomi.
Huh?
Do you have any of that arse medicine on you by any chance? You know, the smeary stuff.
What? Again?
Yep, my dump truck arsehole has been drier than a desert since we got here.
Well, I've got some antibacterial cream if that'll work.
Thanks, I'm going to butter up my pooper real good with it.
She did it, guys! She said the line. I'm ending this video, we are done.
I love this game, man. Only Corpse Party could go from a chilling scene where someone's been gutted on a wall to this. Anyhow, when Seiko was doing the deed, Naomi heard the voice of Yuka crying out for her brother. So the duo go to investigate where Naomi nearly falls down the stairs like a dumbass. So Seiko suggests trying to find somewhere to rest while Naomi can heal her crusty ankle. But before that, they unlock a room they found a key to earlier. As soon as the key turns, Naomi says she doesn't have a good feeling about whatever's in there, but Seiko's like, nah, it'll be fine, man, trust. The two walk in to find a dead body sprawled on the floor, with the words "Don't read the newspaper" forcefully scratched into the floor by fingernails. At this point, Naomi really wants to leave, but Seiko wants to read the newspaper. Dude! Are you a plonker? But that doesn't matter because all resemblance of bloody rational thinking is thrown out the window and the two cave into the curiosity and take a peek. Breaking news. Serial kidnapping ends in murder. The good name of Heavenly Host Elementary School has been stained in blood today as horrific details on the recent wave of disappearances are revealed. Over the past month, numerous children have gone missing within the town. Authorities quickly turned to kidnapping as the most likely explanation. Now investigators have located the whereabouts of these children, and their findings are way worse than anyone could have anticipated. The bodies of the absconded youth were discovered within the Heavenly Host Elementary School building on September the 18th, 1973, around 7 p.m. Authorities further revealed that a male instructor from the school was found with them, alive but catatonic, holding a pair of bloodied scissors. Each of the corpses appeared to have its tongue severed and removed. Mutilations far too grotesque.
ひどい事件。そういえば何か、昔そんなことがあったって聞いたことがある。私たち、まだ生まれてなかった時代の話だから、よく知らないけどね。
Oh no!
Trolled.
Nah, just kidding. You walk around the room a few times and then the door opens and you're free. But oh no! Seiko lost a little paper scrap. Now Mayu and her will never ever be friends again. But who cares about that? Naomi and Seiko suggest going to the infirmary, as that would be a good place to go and rest.
本当？拭きなよ、ティッシュで。 対これ人の内臓だよ。蝶みたいなの踏んだらブチュってうんこみたいなの出たもの。
It felt like I just plopped my shoe in a juicy pile of dog poo. Cool.
Well, you know what? Excusing whatever the hell I just read, it's time to visit the infirmary. And oh boy, with a scary jingle like that, you know this room is going to be very, very safe and not dangerous. And you know what? 2 beds and 2 anime women can only mean one thing. That's girl talk! Yes!
So, hey, Naomi.
Yeah.
So have you and my child... So have you and my child...
Fuck, dude.
So have you and my child... So have you...
What is wrong with me? Why can't I say words all of a sudden?
How do you even say his name?
I'm supposed to be reading a script. This isn't going very well.
Mochida. I'll just call him Mochida. Mochida.
So have you found Mochida? Have you thought about...
What you want to do with him?
Well, you know what they say. When 2 people are faced with a difficult situation, it often leads to love.
Alright, first of all, that's not true. Last time my parents were faced with a difficult situation, you know what it led to? Divorce. And secondly, I don't think this is the type of atmosphere to go banging each other. There's literally a bloody mutilated wall person outside this room, and you're probably gonna get an STD from the floor. Sorry, it's just when I see that arse of yours, I start to drool. Seiko is the only good video game character, and if you disagree, you are cringe. Okay, so Naomi's fat ass aside, while the 2 hornos are laying down, they all of a sudden hear stupid ass Yuka calling for her brother. Naomi wants to go and investigate, but because of her crummy shattered ankle, Seiko remarks that maybe that's not such a good idea, and leaves Naomi alone to rest while she herself goes to see if she can find Yuka.
ちょっとサトシ、何しがみついてるのよ。あとそこ胸。
すまん、見えなくて。
Of course, Naomi starts daydreaming about that one moment an hour ago when Satoshi touched her chest, because it was the only moment of intimacy the developers had with the 2 characters without needing to program a whole new scenario.
こんなことに。
Naomi decides to plop out of bed. She finds an old-fashioned heater with some matches inside. She then goes to leave the infirmary, but to her dismay, the door has been completely locked shut, as if it had been fastened to the wall by invisible bonds. There's no visible bolt either. The door hadn't been physically locked, it's just all of a sudden completely unopenable. And fuck. To make matters worse, there's the sound of some petulant child laughing, as if this scenario couldn't get any more worse.
子供の声。
夏休みには皆さんで遠足に出かけましょうね。
誰？何？なんか頭が痛いな。耳鳴りがする。
Inspecting the door again reveals that it has been completely clogged up by thick, latticed strands of hair.
「さっちゃん迎えに来てくれたの？」
Out of nowhere, this dark spirit amasses from the floor and starts pursuing you. You get these a lot in RPG Maker games, you've all seen it before, but what I like about this scenario in particular is that it's so damn claustrophobic. It adds a good layer of tension because not only are you in this dingy small room with nowhere to go, but cracks appear in the floor, really limiting your options in terms of escaping. Many people who play this segment for the first time often end up panicking and immediately getting killed. You have a few opportunities to escape from the creature's grasp, however. Getting snatched once, a message pops up telling you, the black mist begins to wrap itself around Naomi's body. There's no question that this is a malevolent force. If this continues, death is inevitable. Now, in my personal opinion, dying is kind of cringe, and I'm not going to fall victim to this stupid loser. So if you manoeuvre your way out of the ghost clutches, you'll be able to pick up some rubbing alcohol from a cabinet at the side of the room, and use it to burn down the hair on the door and escape. Naomi retches blood onto one of the hallway's walls, and out comes Seiko, returning way too late.
Naomi! どうしたの? 大丈夫?
She unfortunately couldn't find Yuka, but that was the last thing dwelling on Naomi's conscience after that dreadful encounter. Seiko obviously tries to lighten up the mood by giving one of her quirky, friendly little anecdotes, but Naomi doesn't seem to care, culminating into a more nihilistic and hopeless thought of mind. Everyone we've came across have been dead. It's hopeless. We're finished. And I'm so tired.
子供みたいになってる。ナオミ、元気出して。なんとかなるよ。ありえないじゃん、死ぬなんて私たち。明日は朝一でカットの予約入れてるし。午後からほら、一緒に自転車直しに行くの。ついてきてくれるんでしょ? 帰れたらね。
At this point, Naomi becomes mentally aware about what she's saying, but appears to have lost complete control over what comes out of her mouth.
ナオミ疲れちゃった?らしくないよ、なんか。もっと上げていこうよ。そしたら怖くないって。ねえ。
What the hell's got you so chipper? Huh? You keep smiling and laughing. Do I? Tell me, how long is it going to last if it turns out we can never go home again? Well, have you even given that any thought at all? We'll figure something out. Psh, that's bollocks and you know it. I must have finally cracked under the pressure. This whole situation was just more than my soul could bear. I thought I'd be keeping Seiko's spirits up to the bitter end, but just like that, I was berating her, abusing her. All I had running through my head was pain and sadness. I was like a baby throwing a hissy fit. I was crying out, irrationally, and I couldn't stop. Venomous words were flowing out my mouth as if someone had turned on a spigot. All I could do was moan, complain, and belittle. I really was behaving just like a spoiled little brat.
家族だってきっといつまでも心配してずっと探したりしてすごい迷惑かけるし。それは違うよ。何が？迷惑っていうのは絶対違うよ。いなくなった人が大事だから、何かしたくて苦労でも何でもしてあげたいから、したいからするんだよ。私のバカ、聖子のお母さん数年前に失踪しているのを知ってたくせに。残された人ってそう考えるものじゃないかな。あんたのところはどうか知らないけど、 スはそんなおめでたい考え方できないよ。ナオミ、ごめん、手分けしない？別々に手がかり探した方が効率いいかもしれないし。そんな言い方ってある？謝んなきゃ。私だって帰りたいよ、お父さんやユウたちに。心配かけたくないよ。私が悪いんだから謝んなきゃ。それなのにナオミにそんな言い方されたら。聖子、ごめん、私私こそごめん。ナオミがそうしたいのなら私行くね。何やってんのよ、私。
And so, in this nexus of closed spaces where humans are scattered and imprisoned and killed, two friends who should have been thankful just for the small favour of being trapped together in this unforgiving place were quickly and easily divided.
Hey guys, it's me, Hoodied. I've been working on this video for like 5 million years right now, and it's pretty long and stuff, so I just thought I'd put in this little segment here for people who got this far. Corpse Party's been a pretty niche game, falling into obscurity, so I'm really happy to make a video discussing it because it isn't something someone has done in a while. Anyway, I thought I'd give out some little shout outs and stuff. Manly Badass Hero, used to watch him when I was younger. He's basically the guy when it comes to playing all these RPG horror games, even the really obscure ones. I also had to resort to using quite a bit of his gameplay footage because all my capture card recordings broke, so he's also been a big saviour in that regard. There's also been this cool channel I found called The Corpsey Show, a really small channel I found, and it's basically just an entire channel dedicated to Corpse Party lore, and the editing's pretty cool, so check them out if this is something you enjoy. Also want to give a big props to my good man Siobhan, who's been keeping me motivated to finish this shy all the way back when I started this video in July something last year. She's been really good help, and even though she's kind of stinky and also a woman, she's been pretty cool. Okay, back to the video.
The POV switches to Seiko, who's pretty pissed off and mortified about the whole previous ordeal. You actually take control of Seiko here, which is good because Naomi is an utter knob. Now, this segment is optional. Along the corridor you have the option to investigate a scream, but for now we'll abstain and explore a little more. Also, can I just say the music here is bloody sick. It's actually a remixed version of the main theme that plays in this portion of the game, but it's a lot more heavy and distorted to reflect the diminishing relationship of our protagonist, as well as the diminishing part of my brain whilst making this video. Now, you can attempt to meet up again with Naomi, but this is impossible, for an earthquake within the school destroys the path between the two, leaving them properly separated. Defeated, Seiko starts pondering about her situation, even herself now starting to doubt she'll even be able to escape. Maybe when this is all over, she'll finally be able to tell Naomi how she really feels. Nah! It wouldn't work out. Naomi is too infatuated with that sad-ass Satoshi, and at this point the game has already overwhelmed my low IQ straight person brain with so much gay, I don't think I'd personally be able to handle it. Stranded with no other option, you as a player have no choice but to command Seiko deeper into the depths of the skull. harboring since I got here just kept growing stronger and stronger. I felt like something else was in my head, like I was under some sort of alien influence. In my mentally distraught state, I ran all the way through the building, frantically searching for Seiko. I just kept calling her name over and over again. When I finally came back to my senses, I found myself standing in the third floor hallway. Once again, you're in control of Naomi, who had clawed out of her manic state and made her way up to the girls' lavatories, frantically searching for Seiko. That's when she hears a banging sound to the west, like something's been knocked over, and slowly, Naomi creaks open the toilet door to investigate. That's right, lurching in the toilet stall is the choking and spluttering hanging body of Seiko. No, I'm not going to lie, all the jokes made in this video aside, I hate this scene. It goes beyond uncomfortable, it's just fuck, to the point I could barely describe. It's this scene with the voice acting and the music and the nasty gagging and rope sound effects which genuinely made me reconsider if I should finish this video or not. It's that morbid and nasty, and experiencing this for the first time, spoiler free, just gives you the worst feeling ever. Naomi frantically tries to hoist the Seiko up and remove the rope, but all it does is exacerbate her suffering. She starts to panic and has absolutely no idea what to do. That's when Naomi remembers outside the room is a bucket, which she could use to stand on and hopefully elevate Seiko a little higher to free her. She runs outside. Inside the bucket is a clump of unidentifiable meat, completely crawling with maggots, but Naomi doesn't care, as long as she can use it to save her friend. With blank eyes, Seiko's body swung back and forth slowly in her noose. All life had been completely drained from her face. Naomi, falling to her knees, plunges into a mixture of insanity, sadness and rage, refusing to believe this was reality, crying at the feet of her best friend, who was laughing and making jokes mere moments ago. Seiko was the only factor of this horrid hellscape who brought a sense of hope and comfort to the never-ending nightmare known as Heavenly Host, and now here she was, swinging lifeless and dead. There's no way to save Seiko. This isn't the 90s, there's no alternate or happy ending. This is the culmination of your actions and there's no way back. Seiko is gone. Naomi, all hope lost, begins to crumble onto the floor, outright denying this to be reality. This has to be some sort of terrible nightmare. Muttering her final words, the game fades into black,
beckoning the player to continue in Chapter 2. We've only begun to scratch the surface of what Corpse Party entails. Now, this chapter is mad, but you want to know what's also mad? This game's like 15 hours long, dude. Not to mention the sequel, and the alternate reality pre-sequel sequel, and the reboot sequel, and the manga, and the anime no one likes, and the paedophile manga I'll never read or talk about, or the CDs, or this thing. I don't even know what this is. Is it like a game? Is it funny? The point I'm making here is this has already been the longest video I've ever made or worked on, and there's just way too much to talk about without my bones just crumbling and breaking and shattering. So if you want to see a sequel, I don't know, like the vid, share it with your mum or something, I'd be very appreciative. I actually stumbled across Corpse Party in 2014 when I was 9. So revisiting this series that I enjoyed back when I was a little fetus, but now with the expanded mindset of an epic old person, has actually been kind of refreshing, because this game is messed up. Like I said, I didn't even scratch the surface of Corpse Party. Chapter 2 is probably my favourite section of the game. There's so many cool deaths and scenes, and you play as Yoshiki, who's kind of cool. You know, it's sort of sad to see this video end. I've been working on it for so long, and I didn't really want to say goodbye. Wait, end. The video end. Oh no. Unlike the original PC 98 version, the endings you receive in Corpse Party Bloodcovered aren't dependent on your in-game choices. Seiko will always die, and the outcome of your story will always be set in stone, minus a few different scenarios later on. Now, whilst that's kind of a shame, with the permadeath in the original Corpse Party being one of the more interesting ideas present, Bloodcovered makes up for this with its long-winded bad endings. In total, there are just over 3 hours of different achievable endings, with most of them putting your character through an awful, horrific death, or worse. Now, unfortunately, I'm not going to cover some of the more interesting endings, because they happen later in the game, and I don't want to spoil anything beyond this chapter, which kind of sucks, because chapter 1, being the introduction, doesn't have as many bad ends in comparison to the end game, which has a lot of death. So, without further ado, going all the way back to the infirmary, if you allow yourself to get caught multiple times by the dark spirit, it will wrap itself within Naomi and choke her to death. The nasty voice acting is what makes this ending so impactful to me, but as far as bad endings go, for Corpse Party this is pretty tame. The last thing Naomi sees before her vision envelops into darkness is the visage of a woman staring into her soul, how one would usually stare into a Pringles can looking for the last crisp. Overall, the ending's alright. Since this is the first ever bad ending you can achieve, it acts more of a reminder for what's to come. So the next ending will be a little harder to explain. Right, so for most chapters in Corpse Party there are these things called memoirs. They're usually collectible notes you can find scattered throughout the school, giving you insight and lore into the other survivors of Heavenly Host. However, there's a catch. Discovering the final page to these memoirs will curse the protagonist with the same fate as the author of the note and lead to a bad end. Now in the PC and PSP release, the memoir within chapter 1 is completely absent. It doesn't exist, but it was actually added as additional content to the 3DS version of the game. The problem with this is I don't have a 3DS, and the only footage I can find online looks like this, so I'm gonna have to improvise. Hey, editing Hoodied here. I actually did find the footage, so I'm gonna show that instead of whatever the hell I was gonna do. The first note can be found in Classroom 1A whilst you're exploring the school with Seiko.
Let our parting be temporary. I send thee flowers, my beautiful lover, as thou want'st eternal for my return. Beautiful flowers thou canst see, and shouldst I break free of this hell and retake my place at thy side. These words I could never say, and these feelings I could never give. All will be laid bare for thee.
Aw, he's just a cute little poet, isn't he? He's just kind of cute.
Not making any assumptions here, but the bloke who wrote that definitely browses Reddit in his spare time. The second note can be found in room 2A.
Alas, the only flowers that bloom in hell are white as freshly fallen snow. So on a lark thy heart, pure as a heart can be, I wish to stab with pins and scatter the petals. Let the white flowers be dyed red by thee.
Right, getting a little bit cringe all of a sudden, but that's okay. The third memoir can be found near the stairs leading to the third floor bathroom.
Woe is me, who never stopped loving thee. Even thou choosest to move on, I will always love thee forevermore, 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 forevermore. Woe is me, whose crotch is raw and bloody. I scratched it so much I want to show it thee, to prove that it is thine and that I still...
Jesus Christ. Get off your high horse, you repugnant fuck. Anyway, the next memoir can be found in classroom 5A.
Didn't want to see your face. Your face is for no one but me. As I burn in the fires of hell, I continue to live here. I am not dead yet. Let up.
The remainder of the page is caked with blood so thick as to obscure any further writing. But let's be honest, it probably wasn't interesting anyway. The final page can be found outside the girls' lavatories, the same location where Seiko will later take her own life. Now, to cement that this is a bad idea, the game will give you a pop-up asking you if you really want to read on, but we're no pussy.
You can just die. Apologise to me with your death, you bitch. I'm going to rip your intestines from your body and make red flowers bloom and spread all over that white skin of yours. They won't even be able to tell if you're a boy or a girl anymore when I'm done with you.
Yo, cool story, bro. So cool, in fact, Naomi falls unconscious. Upon waking up, Naomi finds herself in a room with Seiko, who's backed up on a chair facing a wall, uttering the words over and over again without deviation. Naomi tries to snap her out from this manic episode, but the attempt is ineffectual as she continues to repeat, followed by a fit of laughter. Seiko's spirit was clearly not entirely intact. She was a shell of her former self, and it didn't seem like she was coming back anytime soon. 4 days had passed since the two had become trapped within the school, and Seiko was still shouting the same words over and over again without fail. The constant monotonous limbo began driving Naomi mad. She had completely lost hope. Until... Naomi, who is now dehydrated and emotionally broken, suddenly jolts awake in overwhelming joy that her best friend had finally came back to her original self. Seiko, have you finally come back to your senses? You have no idea how worried I was. Naomi, you poor girl, you poor girl, you poor girl, you poor girl. Seiko was trolling the whole goddamn time, and on that note, Naomi plunges into madness and dies in the school alone, without the comfort of her best friend. That was a nice ending. How poetic. I think as a bad end, it definitely dips more into the psychological side, rather than showing the cases of shock value the game likes to present every now and then. The implication of Naomi just going fucking mental, and what happens next is quite terrifying and leaves the player with a certain amount of dread despite being a bit vague. It's just a shame the 3DS port doesn't include voice acting as to immerse you in the atmosphere a bit better, but that may have been fixed in the PlayStation and Switch port, I don't know. However, This brings me to the last bad end, but first, we'll have to rewind a bit. Remember this, arsehole? This is the bloke who tells you of the fate you'll suffer if you were to die in the school. An eternity of total damnation and suffering, the agonizing pain of your death looping and repeating forever with no hope of freedom. Now, this is a particularly horrifying thing to think about, especially regarding the fate of some of these characters. Analysing the corpses around Heavenly Host will give you the circumstances of their deaths, and they can be extremely gruesome, only made worse with the context that they have no freedom from this agony. I want you to take this into consideration for this next ending. In the room with the newspaper, if you go with your gut instinct and choose to simply ignore going inside, you'll avoid being trapped entirely. But now, you as a player, as well as Naomi and Seiko, will never learn the context of the school's mass kidnapping and murders, which is extremely important to the plot of the game. From here, you play as normal, all the way to the scene in which Seiko commits suicide, but now something will be a bit different. Three child spirits appear before Naomi, paralysing her, making her unable to speak or move her body. Somehow or another, Naomi found herself with a large pair of sewing scissors in her hand. Her mouth was agape, and she was lowering the open scissors into it as if intending to swallow them whole, all the while the ghost children were beckoning and laughing. Naomi could feel the scissor blades clanging against her molars, and without control, she lifts them into her entire mouth, trying her utmost best to resist the horrible urge to swallow. But God, it was too late. The ghosts are gone now, but their laughter can still be heard in the distance as the sewing scissors travel through Naomi's body, slicing her insides. Naomi begins writhing in pain and dies in extreme agony, a slow and unbearable death, still unable to move and still unable to call for Seiko.